Hi everyone, so I'm back with my last part of my Vietnam series, and this is all about when we got quarantined back in March when the coronavirus pandemic had just started basically. So we went with full intentions that we'd be absolutely fine. You know, things like this have happened in the past where new viruses and stuff have come out, but it wasn't on this level basically. So it just took over the whole world, and unfortunately on Friday the 13th of March we got put into isolation in Vietnam, which was a big experience and eye-opening basically. But we really actually like looking back at it now, which is really strange because obviously we're absolutely fine now, we're okay, and the world is hopefully in a better place, so it's okay to look back on it now. But when I was actually doing this album, I sort of was thinking, oh my god, like how did we cope with this, and you know, will we ever be the same again, and all this sort of stuff. But now looking back at it, it's really interesting to see. Anyway, I'm going to do a lot of talking because I know a few people have asked me about what our time was like, and when I was actually over there people were messaging me all the time, so I'm hoping to sort of tell our story as it was basically. Right, so as you know, we went to Hanoi and Ha Long Bay and was absolutely fine. And then on Friday the 13th of March in the afternoon we were due to fly to Da Nang at about 6:30. So we got to the airport and we were absolutely fine. So we got there, we checked in, we had to wear masks and stuff, which was just normal, but we didn't have any problems. Anyway, so on this page, this is me and Joe just at the airport waiting just to check in basically. We were just listening to some music, we were none the wiser. And this was just our boarding pass with Vietjet Air that we obviously were taking to get to Da Nang. And we were supposed to stay in Hoi An for 4 nights. And we were really looking forward to it because that was the part of Vietnam that was where I really wanted to go. So we're really looking forward to it. We did message our hotel because we were a little bit nervous that things were starting to close, but they said no, like at least sort of 75% things are still open. So we thought, oh, we'll just make the most of it. Anyway, so we checked in and we went through to the departures lounge. They had these massage chairs and they were pennies basically to get a massage. So we just thought, oh, we'll treat ourselves for like, I don't know, I think it was like £2 for a full sort of, 15 minutes or whatnot. So we thought, oh, we'll treat ourselves. We never do this sort of thing. So that's why I took a picture of them, because they were really, really good massages. Like there's some of them, this was actually better than some massage, like proper, like people massages that I've had before. So yeah, we just took a picture of those because they were really, really good. And then we were just laughing because obviously because of coronavirus, we were taking it seriously, but we thought, oh, it's a little bit blown out of proportion at this point. We didn't realise how serious it actually was. But people were obviously wearing like these full-blown like plastic sheets over them. This woman had like an actual like raincoat, a see-through raincoat sort of thing, and I think that she thought it would protect her from coronavirus. But at the time we were just giggling to ourselves because we thought, oh, that's crazy sort of thing. But now looking back, obviously she probably was in the best position, to be quite honest, and we probably should all be wearing those. Anyway, so I changed the theme of this part to like a more grungy sort of vintagey theme because obviously it wasn't a great time, and we did stay in some horrendous conditions, so I wanted to sort of portray that in the colours and the type of stuff that I used for this album. So I used this black and white sort of vintage washi tape that I've had for absolutely years. I don't actually like it that much, but I wanted to use it up, so I used that. I think it came from The Works probably about 6 years ago. I bought it in like a pack of 3 and I wanted to use all 3 of them. And then I used these random sort of like shape stickers. These came from an IKEA sticker book. And then these little puffy stickers, these came from The Works as well, and they're dotted all over. So yeah, and then obviously the paper in the background, you can't see too much of it, but again, it's just from old vintage style collections that I've had for absolutely years. I just sort of pulled out all the cream and all the browns and vintage sort of type that I had. But I did buy a specific paper pad from The Works, I think it's Craft Sensations, which I'll show more of for this album. So then we got on our actual flight. So no, we didn't, that's a lie, sorry. We went through to departures lounge and we sat waiting for basically our flight to board, and I got a phone call on WhatsApp from our tour guide that took us on our Halong Bay cruise, and he rang us and he said, you know, I'm really sorry to have to ring you, but unfortunately one of your cabin crew on your flight from London tested positive for COVID-19. So I'm just sort of telling you just to be careful and all that sort of stuff. And I was thinking, right, okay, well, what does that mean? And he didn't sort of say, you know, you're gonna have to go into isolation or anything, but he was really apologetic. And I was sort of thinking, why is he apologising? What? It's not his fault. Anyway, so I put the phone down and I sort of told Joe, and we were a bit anxious. And obviously we read that basically if you'd come in contact with anyone, you might have to go into isolation. So we were a bit worried that they were going to have like tracks on our passport or something like that, because obviously we filled out all these forms to say where we were and where we were going and stuff. So we were a bit worried when we got to the counter to check in for the flight, like to get on the airplane, that they were going to say, no, you're going to have to go into quarantine. So we were like shaking going up to the desk when they called our flight, to think, oh God, we're going to turn us down. But they let us through. So we thought, right, we might be all right, we think. But anyway, this is our just hand luggage cabin bag sort of tag. And this was just the booking.com information for the hotel that we were supposed to stay in, the Hoi An Ivy Hotel in Hoi An. This is our boarding pass, one of our boarding passes with Vietjet Air. I need to photocopy that because otherwise it will fade. And then this is just some little bits of journaling, basically, just to say what I'm sort of telling you now, basically, just to highlight what happened. And I've used the sick bag as like a pocket. And I know I don't know if that's disgusting or not, but they're really handy for pockets. Oh, and this is the only thing I picked up from the hotel that we were staying in Hoi An. So yeah, that's why I grabbed it. Anyway, so we got off the plane, the flight went okay, we got off the plane at Hoi An, no we didn't, at Da Nang. And then we picked up and we got taken to our hotel, and then we thought we was okay, and then the minute the receptionist asked us which flight we came on from the UK, we told her from London, we told her on the 8th of March, she just went white, like she just sort of froze, and we were like, oh God, what's happened? Like, they know, basically. And she just went all funny, and she took our passports and she said, okay, I'll get someone to show you to your room. And then she started getting on the phone, and she started sort of obviously talking really quickly. So we went up to our room, and I was sort of thinking, this isn't right, basically, like they know something, or they're going to do something. And then I went downstairs for the Wi-Fi password, and she wouldn't talk to me. Like I just sort of stood by reception, but she was almost ignoring me because she was on the phone. And I sort of said, like, excuse me, could I have the Wi-Fi password, please? And she sort of snapped at me, and she said, oh, can you just sit down, please? And I sat down on the sofa, and I thought, this is weird. Anyway, because I was taking a few minutes or whatnot, Joe came down and was like, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know, she's not talking to me, and she told me to sit down. And he sat down with me, and then the manager came up to me and said, oh, we're just gonna have to check a few things, because obviously you've come from London and stuff. We just had to check a few details, and the police are gonna come. And I'm like, oh God. And a few people started to gather outside, like official sort of people, and other hotel guests were asking if we were okay, and we're like, yeah, we're fine, but the receptionist is being a bit funny with us, basically, because we came from London. And then some of the hotel guests were like, oh, don't worry, she's been like that for the last week or so because she's so worried. Anyway, so we thought, okay, maybe they're just checking, maybe they'll just come and take our temperatures and whatever, and we'll be fine. But then suddenly this little minibus came, all big blue flashing lights like an ambulance outside. The manager said, oh, could you come out here, please? And he gave us a bottle of water each, and he was really nice. And then all these like people in this PPE all came out of this minibus, and were like, we're gonna have to take you away because you've been in contact with someone that has COVID-19, so we're gonna have to isolate you for 14 days. And the instant panic just took in, and I was like, oh my God, like, what are we gonna do? Our flight home is in 10 days time, and you know, we're gonna miss that, and we can't be put in isolation and all this sort of stuff. Like, what are we gonna do? And they're like, don't worry, the Vietnamese government will take care of you, and you know, and we were panicking anyway. The manager was really apologetic. He's like, I'm so sorry, and you know, we have no choice, we have to do this. And he got our bags for us, and he gave us some more water, and they opened up the doors of this minibus, and thankfully there was already people in there, and they were like, don't worry, we're all English. And there was at least sort of seven of these people that are all English and all on our same flight from London basically. And I thought, I felt so much more relief basically to have people that spoke English and was in the same position as us. I was just worried it was just going to be me and Joe. We just didn't know what to do basically, but because we had other people, it was okay. Anyway, that was how we started. Sorry, this is more talking or anything. I hope that's okay. But yeah, so these obviously there's a lot of writing on this page, and that is what I'm basically telling you now. So this is where we ended up. So they took us like racing along this road in pitch black. We had no idea where we were, and obviously this was like 9 p.m. at night, so again we had no idea where we were. It was pitch black outside. So they took us to this army base, and we could just see this barbed wire like entrance, and we're thinking, oh god, where are they taking us? And we got out, and they asked us to fill out some details. And obviously they were all dressed in this PPE. We couldn't even see these people. They had like goggles and masks and everything on. We didn't even know who we were talking to. And they showed us to these barracks, basically, these here. Like, this is where you're going to be sleeping. And each like bed had like a mosquito net, a pillow, and like a thin duvet. And we're like, oh god, like, is this where we're going to be sleeping for 10 days on like these thin like bamboo mats on iron beds basically? Anyway, they were like, oh, you're only here for 1 or 2 nights, and then we're going to move you. But you're just here to be tested, basically, and then we'll move you out. So I just took some photos, obviously, when we first moved in. And this was the outside. This is obviously the next day, but this is the outside of the building. So I think it was like an old army school. That's what it felt like. It had like what these were like classrooms, because behind these curtains there was like a little stage and all that. So we think it was like an old school basically. But we had 1 bathroom on each floor, and there was 3 floors, and there was 1 bathroom, but it didn't have any showers. It was literally just a toilet and a sink. So we, you know, originally there was 8 of us. Between 8 of us we had 1 bathroom basically. But then another 8 came along. 8 English people came along, so then we were 16 of us, and again sharing 1 bathroom. And obviously this was a time when we were told like this disease is really contagious, and obviously we're thinking, well, if we've been put with people that might have it, this isn't going to keep us safe and clean and everything. But we just had to go along with it, because obviously we didn't speak Vietnamese and we didn't know what we were doing, and obviously this was all new to everyone, so we just sort of went with it. Anyway, the first night, so this was our building, and then, well, this was our building here, and next to us was this other building, which was like an old hotel, and in there was like a big group of Dutch tourists, a few English and some Spanish, and they spoke to us over this like rope. We weren't allowed to mix, but they spoke to us over this rope at night and said, like, you know, where have you come from and all this. And they said that they'd been there a week and they got moved into this hotel, which was much better because they had their own bathrooms and things. But they gave us some mattresses, because obviously it was an old hotel, so they gave us some mattresses and some actual duvets. So the first 8 of us got these mattresses. So we were all right, we could sleep on those. So they were really nice to have given us those. But the second lot of people, the 8 other English people, they didn't get that, because the Dutch people had gone to bed by the time that they arrived, so they didn't get anything. So they were sleeping on these beds for how many days we was in this building for, about 4 or 5. And you know, some of them were elderly. There was at least like a 60-year-old man and a few with like back problems and stuff, and I just thought, god, that's horrendous. Like that was bad enough because it was sticky and sweaty, but to sleep on iron beds, it wasn't great. Anyway, so yeah, this is where we slept. So this is from a Jolie's Boutique pack, and I just used, as I said, like grunge sort of papers that I got from the works or from older sort of stashes that I had. So as I said, this was our building here. We had like, obviously we could move all along here, but basically this whole thing was like 1 bedroom, and each side had like that was just a staircase, and there was some bathrooms down here, like a bathroom on each floor. I didn't even know this, but there were two Polish, like a couple above us on the 3rd floor, and they didn't have any beds. They were sleeping on the floor for 10 days, basically. They were sleeping on the floor with no mattresses or anything. But because they didn't want to be put with other people like us that may have had the disease, they obviously just said they'll sleep up there. But they got quarantined a lot earlier than we did. But they got rejected by the Dutch people because, again, these guys here, the Dutch people, had arrived a lot earlier than the Polish came, and they refused to have them with them because obviously they didn't want to catch anything, because if you caught anything, you're going to be there longer, basically. So everyone was like, no, we'll stay on our bubbles. So they sort of declined the Polish people to come and live with them. So the Polish people stayed up on the top floor and just sort of kept themselves to themselves. But I didn't even know they were up there until about 5 days in. Anyway, they were really lovely, and we did try and talk to them, but I think they were just desperate to get home and just stay together and just keep safe, basically. So yeah, so this is where we stayed for 4 or 5 days, and this is just us, basically. So we had our own little beds. Me and Joe sort of made camp by the door, so we had a bit of a breeze coming because it was really hot. We had fans in the room, but they didn't really do too much. But yeah, we just sort of chilled. We had Wi-Fi, which was good, but other than that, we didn't have anything to do. So we just basically spent the days eating and talking. That was our routine, basically, talking, eating, and laying down in bed. So I just put on here quarantine, which I really like these letters. These came from Neon Sheep. And yeah, so that was our beginning of isolation. So these were the sort of conditions that we were in. So this is the first part. This was the old school that we stayed in. So these were the bathrooms. This was actually the men's toilets. So there was one toilet there, and then these were like cubicles. I don't actually know what's on the other side. I never walked in there because it's the men's bathroom. But as you can see, it's not the cleanest. Me and Joe did actually try and clean some of the bathroom when we first arrived there, just one, for something to do, and two, to try and keep as clean as we possibly can without showers, because there was no showers. We had no showers for 5 days. These were the ceilings in the bathroom that we were staying in, and there was normally pigeons, so you'd be on the toilet basically with pigeons above you, and it was an experience. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, really. It was just, we didn't know what to do. We were just stuck. We had no choice, basically. And obviously this was the fire extinguishers, so they definitely wouldn't have helped should there have been a fire. And then we had these bins that we had to use. The guards weren't allowed to touch us, and we weren't allowed to touch them, like to hand things over and whatnot. So any rubbish had to go in these bins, and obviously it has, like, you know, COVID, SARS-2 on it and things. So, and then this is the toilet. So that's the only toilet that sort of worked. The men's toilet became blocked because the drains weren't great. So then they started to use our toilet, and it just wasn't nice whatsoever. I'm not surprised. A lot of us did get ill. Not with COVID, but just stomach problems and just feeling rubbish, basically, and I'm not surprised with what we were living in. So these are just some pictures, basically, of like what we spent our day. So every day, we call them Smurfs, and they like that we call them Smurfs. We showed them a picture of a Smurf. I think most people know what a Smurf is. Obviously, it's a little blue character. And we thought they looked like them in their PPE, so we called them the Smurfs. And they come round once a day, sometimes twice a day, with a little thermometer, and they'd come round and check your temperature. But obviously we were so panicked about being hotter than we thought we were. We'd all stand underneath the fan for a good sort of 15 minutes before they were due to come round to make sure our temperature was low. But they came round and they checked our temperatures, and they said hello to us, and they didn't speak much English, so we couldn't really communicate too much with them. But that was our little routine in the morning. About 8:30 every morning, they'd come round and check our temperatures. And because we didn't have any showers, we had to sort of makeshift our own showers. So we tried with these. We obviously got given these big bottles of water, and we tried to use that. So that is Joe having a shower with one of our other English friends. That we were just basically tipping water on each other to try and shower behind like a board. We obviously had like our bikinis and swim shorts on and stuff, but then because you had to rely on two people having to do that, and the bottles were heavy, so the women, I couldn't lift it. It had to be men, so we had to think of another way. Anyway, we came up with this idea, which was like it was like almost like a hose pipe. But we did that, but then within, I don't know, a couple of hours, the Smurfs needed, or the guards, they needed the hose pipe, so we couldn't do that anymore. But I think 1 or 2 people had a shower like that in the middle of the grass area in front of the building. And then we had these supplies. Basically, they gave us a load of water, and they gave us toothpaste, shampoo, toilet roll. They gave us all them sort of things, but they didn't really give us food. We had to wait for our food every day, 3 times a day. So this was all about our food. So basically we got given 3 meals a day, and it came from like a hotel down the road. We believe so anyway, because it always had a name of a hotel on the front. So this is like the barrier between, that's the entrance, and this is our little ground area that we had. And this was the table, so I've just outlined the table because that was like where everything was delivered. So we'd be sitting up on the balcony bit, waiting basically for the truck to arrive, and we could see all the bags coming in. I don't even know why we waited for the food. We didn't eat half of it anyway, but it was just something to do when you've got absolutely nothing to do all day. It was like the highlight of the day when food came. So we'd all go down, the guards had to put the food on the table, and then once all the food was on there, we could then go and get it. And basically for like breakfast, this is what we'd get. So we'd get 2 slices of bread, we'd get a slice of ham, some cheese, a boiled egg, some cucumber, a little banana, and sometimes you get like a tiny little piece of cake or cookie or brownie or something. But I don't eat any of this for breakfast really. I don't like ham, I don't like egg, and then you're just eating a piece of bread basically. So me and Joe actually lost half a stone in the 10 days that we were there, because we just didn't really want to eat. We were stressed and it was hot and we didn't like the food, so you just didn't really eat. But then this is the sort of thing we'd get for tea. So you normally get like a massive portion of rice, and then you get some sort of meat in a sauce. We had no idea what we were eating, and to be honest, it was always a little bit lukewarm. It wasn't hot. So again, we're not surprised that a few people had stomach problems. You know, sometimes people are like, oh, this is fish, and I'm like, this is definitely not fish. And it's like, is it chicken? Is it beef? Like you didn't know what it was. It didn't taste of anything specific. And then you get some like random soup again that we didn't really eat. So yeah, that's what we had every day. There's some really, really nice people though in Vietnam. All of our, obviously, different suppliers, like our hotel manager that we were supposed to stay in, he actually offered to come bring us some food, and he didn't even want paying. Like we said, I know we'll pay you, you know, for anything. He said, no, we don't want paying. It's not your fault you're in here and all that. So they gave us a big bag of like cookies and fruit and all that sort of stuff. So that was really nice of them. And then the others, like our friends, tour guides and stuff, they brought them some bits and pieces. So they were really nice, and I can't fault the Vietnamese people. They were so kind. Because obviously they didn't know what was going on, and obviously all their business was just going down the drain because no one was travelling. And yeah, so for them to even think about buying us some stuff, it was really kind of them. And then from the Vietnamese government to say thank you for cooperating, they sent us like 10 boxes of these choco pies, and we literally got crates of them. So yeah, we had those. We had at least a box each per person. So yeah, they were nice, and they're a nice sort of change to have. And this page is just about socialising basically. So after 5 days in that hellhole, we moved into the hotel which is next door. And it wasn't a working hotel. It didn't have like a reception or anything like that. It didn't, you know, you didn't have anything like a normal hotel. It was an old derelict hotel that hadn't been used for years. But it meant that we had our own room. Like each couple had their own room, which was really good. So yeah, this is the front of it, and it was called the Kua Day Beach. We googled it once, and I think it's shut down probably about 5 or 6 years ago. But it's a very odd hotel to be next to an army base. Anyway, so we had a bit more space in this place here, and we obviously had a bit more privacy, which was good. And once we moved into this area, a lot of people just kept themselves to themselves because we were getting closer and closer to getting home. So we just didn't want to risk any sort of contagion. That reminds me, so we moved, in the middle of this, us staying here, obviously we all got tested. and I missed out the complete part of the story. We all got tested after about 2 days, and it was the most horrendous thing of my life. I absolutely hated it. I've got a fear of people being sick. So when we had to get tested, I didn't realise what that actually meant. I saw them take some blood and stuff, and I thought, that's fine, I'm fine with needles. But then I could hear people coughing, and I'm like, why are they coughing? And obviously when we looked at what they were doing, obviously there's the swab going up the nose, which is obviously extremely uncomfortable. And then the swab going to the back of the throat, obviously it makes people gag. It's the reflexes. And I was thinking, oh my God. And I started to come over really hot and really sweaty. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't, I don't want to be sick. I don't want to be sick. And I can't let anyone else be sick. And it was horrible. And I had the nurse, like the woman taking all the tests, she was like, pat me down with like a wet towel. And I was getting really worked up. Anyway, I went to bed straight afterwards. And then a day later, one of the Smurfs came and said, oh, we need this person to come with us. And we're like, oh my God, like what's happened? And basically one of our friends that we'd met here, he tested positive, but he had no symptoms whatsoever, and his wife was negative. And so they took him to the hospital, and we had them all on WhatsApp, so we could still keep in touch. And throughout their time, the wife never tested positive, but he had 4 positive results and 3 negative, and she was negative the whole time, which is really strange. And he had no symptoms, but they had to stay an extra month because of that. We all got to go home, but they didn't get to come home basically until a month later. Anyway, but because we'd been in contact with another person that had tested positive, they told us that we had to then start our quarantine clock again. So then we had to stay another 14 days because we could then be infected by him. Anyway, so we all started to get really depressed about it. We were like, we're never going to get home. So as I said, because we were in here, we had our own rooms, everyone sort of just kept themselves just in case. And then within 2 days of us moving in here, they tested us again. And this time I sort of just wanted to get over and done with. I was like, right, I know what it is. I'll get it done and dusted. But then my boyfriend, Joe, didn't feel very well. We all had dodgy stomachs and he didn't feel great and he hadn't eaten, and he had a bit of a panic attack about it, and it was horrible to see people. And even like one of the older gentlemen, he was getting really emotional about it because the nose, they put it so far up your nose that you can feel it at the back of your throat, which is absolutely horrendous. And his eyes were watering, and I was just thinking, this poor old man, he was on his own as well, like he didn't have a wife or anything. And it was really heartbreaking to see people in pain and people uncomfortable, and that's why I really do not want to get another COVID test, like because of the situation and the problems that we had here. So yes, we got all tested and we never heard anything back. Like we were in here for a good 3 days after the test, and we still haven't heard anything back. But we're like, well, no news is good news basically, because obviously they came and took the other man away like within a day. So yeah, we just sort of kept ourselves to ourselves, but we did sort of sit down, and as I said, the hotel operators and the tour operators that were obviously originally with us, they were giving us drinks and stuff like that. They were coming dropping stuff off, so we all normally sat around in an evening and just sort of chatted about stuff, and it was just nice. And we didn't think we was infected. We'd obviously been with each other for 10 days now, so we thought we were okay. But we basically just spent our days sunbathing, and we were trying to amuse ourselves. Like one of the guys here, he was so funny. He was sat behind this tree, and because he was just in his swim shorts, he looked like he was naked. So I took a photo of him. But it was just things like that that were sort of keeping us going basically. And then on our last sort of day, we got this photo of all of us basically. So this is all the English people, bar the 2 people that got taken to hospital, that we were with. And obviously if it wasn't for these guys, I don't know what we would have done. They were just such a lovely group of people. So that's me and Joe there. And there was a mixture of people. There was older couples, there was 2 young girls. So yeah, there was a mixture of people there, and without them I don't think we would have got through, definitely not. They were helping us like contact our government and our embassies and keeping in touch with what we needed to do, and they were communicating back home. And we wouldn't have stood a chance if we didn't have these guys around us. So that's why I put all these little thank yous around them, because I honestly don't know what I would have done without them. So after 3 days in this place, We obviously didn't have any news, so we thought, right, we should be okay. And we actually had some French people with us as well. They'd come about a day or two after us, and they'd sort of followed us into this hotel, and we sort of said, like, we don't want to be sharing with another group of people if we don't know what the results are. Anyway, so they said to us, they said, oh no, you're all negative. And like, oh well, you could have told us that, you know, 2 days ago. But we're all negative. We all came back negative, which was good. So this was the moment they told us that we basically were all negative and that we could be going home quite soon, because the government was under pressure to sort of release these people back home. Obviously we're all from different countries, so we all had to get home basically. So they all sort of gathered us in the hallway, and I took this picture of us all gathered because we were all so like, what's going on? And they're basically asking for our passports. Again, I'm not too sure why. But all our visas were starting to expire, because obviously you only get like a 15-day visa in Vietnam, unless you can pay for a longer one, but the free visa was 15 days. So we thought they were just trying to extend our visas basically. But I think it turned out that they wanted our names, our full names and dates of birth and all that to put on their system. So I took that picture of just the good news basically. And I put here, the Smurfs appearing was either very good or very bad, basically. So each time they came along, we're like, oh God, what's going to happen? But these are our test results. So they're dark because it was like a photocopy of something else, and then I photocopied it again. So it's got all our people's names, and that here, down here, this means you're negative. So these are basically all the people that we were with, and I've highlighted in gold mine and Joe's name, obviously. So they were just to say that we'd been tested and we were negative, and we could use those for flights home and stuff. And then we got given like a big envelope with details, which are in the back of this book. So I just stuck those on the back of the results. And then this is all my Instagram posts. So basically, to keep in touch with everyone, and everyone was sort of asking what's happening and things, I decided just to do it on my Instagram. So every day I'd keep a little update and stuff. So I printed them all off and I laminated them, and just obviously shrunk them down. And yeah, I just print them off in day order basically. So yeah, it's just sort of going through, and I had so many messages. I've never been messaged so much in my life, and people were so interested about what's going on. But yeah, I thought that was quite a nice sort of thing to put in, like a timeline of events. And then this is when we got told we were actually going home. So suddenly all these cameras turned up, and the Smurfs turned up, and they said, right, well, tomorrow you can go home basically, so you can start booking flights. And honestly, we were so excited. We're like, right, we're going upstairs to get the good Wi-Fi, and we're going to go book our flights home. And the world was shutting down before our eyes basically. There was hardly any flights, so you know, we were willing to pay. Luckily we had the money, but we're willing to pay any money just to get home. So I put up here freedom, and I had like some cutouts that I just went round basically to do that. And then yeah, I've just written about us booking these flights home. And then this is one of our friends. She's actually one of the German nationals that were with the French. She was speaking to the media about what was happening. And then we had some, like, on the day that we left, the next day, we had a really weird sort of ceremony. And we had all these press cameras. We had like random people shaking our hands and giving us gifts. So this is just some photos of basically, they called our names out one by one. And they gave us a bag, and this is just part of the bag here. And it had like a letter to say thank you, and that you're always welcome to Vietnam, and we appreciate your cooperation in this hard time, and all this. And they gave us a lantern each, this little red lantern, which we had one each. So I actually chucked one of mine and kept the other in one of the rooms in our house. I don't really want it on too much of a display, but it's quite cool to keep it. And I found this sticker in a supermarket over here, so I thought that was quite good for this situation. So these are all just our bits and bobs of trying to get home. Now, we thought this was stressful, quarantine, but the worst part of this entire trip was trying to get home. It was horrendous. So basically they dropped us at Da Nang airport, and obviously everyone had chosen different ways of getting home. We had initially chosen to fly to Ho Chi Minh, then fly to Dubai, and then Dubai back to Manchester. But we got to Da Nang airport, we ordered a coffee, and we were so excited because we could actually eat what we wanted to eat, and we could sit and chill out, and you know, it was just being back in civilization basically. We checked in for our flight, and we were just waiting there to board to get to Ho Chi Minh, and then we got a notification from Emirates saying that our flight from Ho Chi Minh to Dubai had been cancelled. And I was like, oh God, what are we going to do? Anyway, so I emailed Emirates and said, look, we're not going to be able to get to Dubai to catch our Manchester flight. So, you know, we need a refund for that. And luckily we'd spaced them out. So the day we got released, we flew to Ho Chi Minh. Then we arranged to stay overnight in Ho Chi Minh and then catch the international flight the next day. So we had a bit of time. So it was okay. It wasn't like we were getting flight after flight after flight. We had a night to sort of get home. So we flew to Ho Chi Minh, and then we booked flights via Hong Kong with Cathay Pacific. I couldn't think then, sorry. With Cathay Pacific, and we thought, right, okay, we're going via Hong Kong. We didn't originally want to go via Hong Kong because they were sort of saying that you might have to go into quarantine, and there were big checks going on at Hong Kong airport, so we didn't want it. We wanted to sort of avoid that. So we didn't really want to fly with Cathay Pacific or via Hong Kong because of that. But we had no choice. There was absolutely nothing else. And we read that basically it's only if you were staying over and intended to stay in Hong Kong that you'd have to go through a load of checks. If you were just transiting, it wasn't so bad. Anyway, so we booked those flights. We got to Ho Chi Minh, we stayed at our hotel, and we did not sleep that night whatsoever. So randomly, Joe got up in the middle of the night. We were trying to sleep. Joe got up in the middle of the night and started looking about Hong Kong, and he'd read somewhere that they were going to stop people transiting at midnight, and we were due to fly at 1 o'clock in the morning the next day, so we would have been an hour out, and we were like, they're going to cancel the flight, to Manchester, and that's it, we're going to be stuck again in Hong Kong. So we were really panicking, and as I said, we probably only had about an hour's sleep. And so luckily the time difference, we contacted Joe's family, and we're like, you know, is there anything about Hong Kong? You know, is there anything like the government? Because Joe's mum had been in contact with the government back home, and they said basically just get out of Vietnam, because they're just quarantining everyone basically. You just need to get out of Vietnam. The government aren't budging on releasing anyone or anything like that. It's up to you to get home. So just get out of Vietnam and we'll deal with that. Anyway, so we're like, we don't want to risk getting stuck in Hong Kong. And there was a British Airways flight flying to Heathrow at 23:50, so 10 to midnight, obviously just before the one we were supposed to take. So we're like, right, we're going to change it. But it just wouldn't let us change it for the life of us. We moved across so much money from our savings to try and book these flights home. And it just wasn't going through. Like, British Airways flight was just crashing constantly. Anyway, so we tried so much, and then Joe's mum tried with my card, like, you know, I sent her photos of my debit card and whatnot, and it worked. And I was like, that can't be real. It can't be real, because we tried about 4 or 5 times and it just declined it again and again and again. And I was like, this can't be real. We're not on this flight, because I know she booked it through Expedia, and I know what Expedia is like sometimes is that they don't have the flight seats. They aren't an airline. They don't have the flight seats to be able to book you on a flight. They have to then go to the airline and book the seats. So yeah, you could have thought you booked a flight, but until that ticket is actually bought from the airline by Expedia, you haven't got a seat. Anyway, so I panicked, and I was thinking, we're not going to get on this flight. It's not real. So we literally tried to sleep, but we didn't sleep at all. And we ended up getting to the airport really early, because I was like, I just need to be there just in case anything goes wrong. So we got to the Ho Chi Minh airport, and we queued up for our tickets, and they were like, I remember my hands were sweating, and I was thinking, we're not going to get on this flight. They're going to say you haven't got a seat on this flight, because it wouldn't even let me check in. It wouldn't let me do anything. So I was ready to be rejected basically. But then she just handed me these tickets, and I was like, I almost cried when she handed me these tickets to say, you know, you're going home basically. Like, I just could not believe it when I actually had a boarding pass in my hand to say, you're going to Heathrow, basically. And I was like, oh God, I could have cried. Honestly, we were so close to we were so emotional and so tired. And we thought we were just going to be stuck again. Anyway, so these are our tickets, and these are all the bits and pieces that we got accumulated for our flight. And so we flew to Hong Kong. We didn't have any problems. We had an 8-hour layover in Hong Kong, and then obviously a 12-hour flight home. So we were really tired. We hadn't slept for about 36 hours, but we were going home, and we really were just living off adrenaline, basically. We were just so excited to be going home. And I haven't finished this page, but this is basically, I've got a picture of me and Joe at the train station. Joe's sister took a picture of us at the station, and I want to put it there, but I'm yet to print it off. And I want to obviously write about how we felt when we came home. And obviously I put this because it says make unlikely friends, and obviously we met some really nice people, and we're still friends now, so because of this. I made this into a pocket, and this is just a newspaper article basically to say that this is what happened to us. It was in 3 newspapers about what happened to us, you know, so that's just something for memories. And then this was all of the paperwork we got given. Well, this is mine, I think. Oh, no, actually it might be Joe's as well, but we got given all of this to, oh, this is Joe's. We got given all of this to say what happened. That's upside down. I think it's a mixture. But yeah, so it's in English and Vietnamese to say that we've been in quarantine for the last 14 days basically, and that we should be allowed to fly. Yeah, that's separate. So this is my one. So yeah, so this is all the stuff that we're going to our insurance. We're still trying to get our money back, even though we're in December now. It's been going on since March, trying to get our insurance to pay out. So yeah. But yeah, so that was our coronavirus pandemic quarantine story from Vietnam. So I apologise, I probably didn't talk about much of the actual scrapbooking, like what I've done. I ended up just talking about the actual journey, but I think it's quite obvious. I've literally just made it as grungy and as dirty looking as possible. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that, and apologies it's a bit of a long video and it's just me sort of talking, but maybe it just give you an insight about what happened on our journey. So yeah, so thank you very much, and I will see you soon. Bye.